So you want to be a ninja? Well, you've come to the right place. My name's Cowboy, and welcome to my ninjutsu guide for Nioh 2. Now, ninjutsu is a very high-risk, high-reward style of play. While you can die in as little as 1 to 2 hits, you can also melt most bosses in 15 seconds. So it is a very, very fast-paced kind of high action. You're able to knock stuff out from range with your throwing weapons. You're dashing all over the place. The Kusarigama is an excellent weapon to run with because of, just it's swinging all over the place. You feel like you're freaking Trevor Belmont in Castlevania, and it's a joy to play. And in today's video, we are going to be looking in depth into how to become a god with a ninjutsu build. Now, obviously, this build is oriented towards being at the end of New Game. We are going to cover how to build up to this, in addition to how you should build beyond this as you continue on into New Game Plus and beyond. So to start, let's go into the primary set that we're using right now, and that is the Master of Illusion set. Now, you can get this after completing the Veteran Ninjutsu Dojo mission that unlocks right around the end of Region 3, early Region 4, and this is a fantastic set for a ninja build. We have an extra 10% ninjutsu damage when we're at full health, 52 ninjutsu power, we have faster ki recovery every time we use ninjutsu, untouched ninjutsu at 15%, and a damage bonus of A based off our ninjutsu power. So all very attractive choices here that are going to help to facilitate this build and make it extremely powerful. Now, there are 2 other sets I would consider ninjutsu friendly in the game, at least from what I've found so far. The first is going to be the Ruler of the Riverside Yokai. Now, while this isn't strictly a ninjutsu build, it is still lightweight, and there's a lot of boosts around Kusarigama here. We have 15% on Whirlwind, attack defense Kusarigama up 40, 5% melee damage, water damage, which when you inflict enemies with water, you get a damage boost right there, so solid choice, and then efficient yokai abilities, which just refunds the cost if you kill an enemy with it. So all in all, a decent set, and ideally, if you had a Yashikana Magatama, I would probably suggest running a Kawanami Kusarigama to pick up this 2-piece bonus. Now, the other is a set everyone's familiar with, but unfortunately it's not as good as it used to be, and that is the Head of the Iga Ninja. They've changed this setup quite a bit. We now have enhanced throwing speed on the Mega Hirokudama, or the enhanced shrapnel bomb, ninjutsu power, melee damage, increased attack defense with spear, and dash ki consumption. So a very big departure from what this set used to be. I mean, the only thing here that really helps a ninja build is the dash ki consumption and the 45 ninjutsu power. You could argue the throwing speed up is going to help, but the super enhanced Hirokudama, I mean, that thing is that is the ultimate risk reward. That thing will melt anything it hits, assuming you can get it off without getting slapped in the face. But either way, wanted to put those sets out there. Now, what about if you are early on in the game and you don't have access to any of these good sets? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to cover that as well. Now, going into the blacksmith, very early on, once you get access to Forge, you should have 2 sets that you have available, the Shinobi Hood or the Fumin Ninja. Now, the Shinobi set is a decent all-around set. We're going to have ninjutsu power here, which is a good stat. It's going to help everything in the ninjutsu tree. But if you want to focus Shuriken and Kunai, which is what you want to focus because that's how you melt bosses, you're going to want the Fumin Ninja gear. The Shuriken and Kunai damage boost on the Fumin Ninja gear is going to outweigh the ninjutsu power boosts on the Shinobi gear, making it a superior choice. So early on in the game, before you have access to full sets, I mean, I literally ran most of the Let's Play in Fumin Ninja gear. I would just forge purple pieces of this, get the right stats on it, and go from there. So trust me when I say you can get by with this. It's not going to be as powerful as having a full ninjutsu set like I have at Endgame, but it is more than sufficient. And if you've watched the Let's Play series, you know that people are already like, how are you melting bosses like this? Moving back on into the gear though, let's talk about what stats we want. Now, there are a couple of key stats I would consider incredibly important. First and foremost, untouched ninjutsu. The higher this is, the more semi-invincible that you are. If you have this up to 50%, every time you toss a kunai, there's a 50% chance it doesn't cost anything. So you can imagine how that gets goofy. This is what allows you to just keep throwing out your kunai over and over and over without them costing anything. Moving on from there, Shuriken and Kunai damage. Obviously a huge boost. If you can get this on a piece of gear, do not pass it up. It is delicious. And then of course, ninjutsu power. These are the 3 tenets of ninjutsu. Ninjutsu power, Shuriken and Kunai, untouched ninjutsu. If you can get these stats on gear, you will become a god. As for our accessories, try and find writing sets. Writing sets come with ninjutsu power guaranteed on them. As you can see, it's pretty easy to roll shuriken and kunai damage onto these as well. These are basically matching. I opted for soul core drop rate because I'm still farming through the game. But another solid perk to pick up here is the melee damage versus poison enemies. Even though the majority of our build is going to be focused on throwing out ranged weapons, there are going to be times where we need to get up close and personal with melee, and having an additional, what we're at right now, I believe is 65% melee damage against an enemy that's poisoned. That's a pretty significant boost. Now, moving on from there, let's talk about our ninja tools and what we're going to use. So our three main throwers here are going to be shurikens, kunais. Actually, here, let me go to the shortcuts to bring up our list. The shuriken, the kunai, and the storm kunai. Those are going to be your three main go-tos. I use the shurikens for weaker enemies, our kunais are our go-to for damage, and then our storm kunais are what we're going to use to melt bosses. In addition to that, we also have some flaming heron feathers. These are excellent at applying fire. They apply fire almost instantly. We have a couple poison shurikens to apply poison if we need to. Of course, weakness talisman from the Omyo tree because it's hilarious, and then one power pill to pop when we decide it is time to melt the boss. Besides that, we have a single quick change scroll on, which is the cheat death mechanic available to ninjutsu, and then barrier talismans, which are just nice in general to help your ki regeneration. Now, as for our stats, when it comes to leveling up and playing a ninja, you're going dex. Pretty much everything is going to be in dex. In fact, if I was able to craft my current set, I wouldn't have constitution this high. The only reason my constitution is even at 16 is because the looted version of the set that I'm running right now requires me to have, 15 constitution on that, but the Kawagawa set required 16. Anyway, point is, you're going to want to have your skill and constitution high enough to meet the needs of your armor. Beyond that, you're going to want to make sure that you have your skill high enough to meet the needs of your spirit to unlock everything on your guardian spirit, which is why we're up to 33. And then beyond that, pretty much everything is going to be in dexterity. I have 1 point dropped on into magic just to help gain access to an additional Omyo slot for some stuff. The 1 point in heart there, that's actually from a passive pickup at the start. And then courage, stamina, and strength are all at base. Now, the reason we're dumping everything into dexterity is because every single point of dexterity is going to boost up our ninjutsu power. After dexterity is maxed out, next we will begin boosting up skill, which will also help ninjutsu power. And these are going to be the two main tenets of a ninjutsu build. You just want to level these bad boys on up. Now, as for our weapon, the obvious choice here is going to be the Kusarigama. The Kusarigama scales with both dex and skill. Late in the game, if you do remodeling, you can actually boost this up to A- scaling in both dex and skill. You sacrifice most of the strength scaling, but who cares? So you can make your Kusarigama even crazier. As for the shooting weapons, ideally, if you have a Yashikama, you would end up running like a Raven Wing rifle and a Warrior of the West bow just for the damage reduction passives on it. But otherwise, there's nothing here that's really that important. I would suggest a rifle just to pop enemies off with headshots, but beyond that, it's dealer's choice here. Now, going on into the skills. As you can see, I already have everything because this is the end of the game, but you're going to want to focus going up the tree first. And this is very important because you are going to gain more ninjutsu points for dealing damage with things from the ninjutsu tree. Sure, you could get some proficiency using stuff like tiger running and whatnot, but it's going to be incredibly slow. If you pick up shurikens at the start of the game and you're throwing these babies out, ninja points are going to start rolling in. And the things you're going to want first and foremost are going to be shuriken, kunai, storm kunai, thrown blade technique, and shuriken shooter. These are the skills that are absolutely required to clap cheeks with this build. Beyond that, some other things that are nice to pick up. We have fire shuriken over here and poison shuriken over here. Fire shurikens are just a nice thing to get early. I like to throw them into most of the game. I use these to actually ignite enemies until I had Shadow Art's Flaming Heron unlocked, so they're a decent choice. And then poison shuriken, an excellent way to get poison up on enemies. Most enemies you can get with a single poison shuriken. If something's a little bit more resistant, it might require 2. And then in general, I like to run 3 because 2 is enough to get poison on, and then a third one to keep the poison up when it begins to fall off. Beyond that, everything else here is just kind of additional flavor. Paralysis shuriken, not bad to pick up, but if you're farming, you might as well use paralytic ground fire. Down here, we have the Power Pill, which also is going to help boost the build in Endgame, but also not necessary. I didn't bother using this until I was in New Game Plus. Besides that, I mean, there's really not much else here. We have some of our farming tools here with Tiger Running, Catwalking, and Sneak Thief. Let's see. I think that is about it. Shadow Arts Flaming Heron. This is decent to pick once you get up later into the game, as opposed to the other Shadow Arts. Raijin here is going to summon lightning down on an enemy. If the enemy moves, it's going to miss. Europa Water is going to summon streams of water at the enemy. If the enemy moves, it's going to miss. Flaming Heron is going to put out 3 fireballs, and they're basically going to heat seek on the enemy like they're freaking Affinity from Dark Souls 2. So excellent, excellent Shadow Art. Very high burning chance, very high damage. And if I'm looking to do fire damage, I'll take this even over the Fire Shuriken. Lastly, of course, we have quick chains here. It is worthwhile having one quick change on when you get later up towards Endgame or New Game Plus. This is just your cheat death, and because of how fragile we are, it's just a nice quality of life to have. Of course, as for our Mystic Art, Concealment, no-brainer here. This is going to increase the damage dealt by ranged weapons and throwing items. This is going to allow us to go through the game, headshot pretty much everything with a rifle, and things that we can't headshot with a rifle, we'll just shred with our Shuriken and Kunais. So that about wraps it up. Talk about Kusarigama real fast, some nice skills in there. I like Renegade Dragon a lot. This is a late game skill, but really nice forward momentum on this, and good vertical hits, good for breaking yokai horns. Blade Spin, obviously a fan favorite from the original, good skill when you're surrounded. We got Whirlwind here in the mid tree. This is a nice AoE ability. It's going to really help to blow through ki on enemies. And then over in our low stance, I like to keep Reaper, and in particular, Butte and Elemental Incarna on it. This just allows me to get up a element on an enemy. And until you get access to some of the later abilities, Reaper is going to be really your main go-to on damage. The only thing is, you really need to like pressure an enemy into the corner to make maximum usage out of this. So, besides that, let's take a look at our Guardian Spirit, and some spoilers here as we do have on some late game soul cores. So Nico Matata, you get this guy pretty late into the game, and this is the only true ninjutsu spirit. We have anima charge bonus based off cumulative damage, 5% throwing weapon damage, yokai ability damage and feral is up 20%, extended burst counter, which essentially increases the parry window on feral, makes it quite nice, and then an anima bonus on ninjutsu hit. Now what's so crazy about that is with that anima bonus, we are able to constantly pump out our yokai abilities because of how much ninjutsu damage we're doing. When it comes to our actual sword cores, Yatsu Kami is the only one I would consider absolutely necessary, and that's because he has the melee damage versus poison enemy on here. The others are pretty much going to be dealer's choice. If you're early in the game, you're only going to have access to 2 slots, so don't worry about it. You'll unlock a 3rd one later on. But Yatsu Kami you get very early, and it's a great choice for this build. We have high anima charge with it, and then melee damage versus poison enemy. This thing poisons enemies on its own, so just good synergy there. As for our secondary, I just run Mikami for final blow damage. There's really not much else here. Looking through, dash key consumption, maybe defense bonus, anima bonus, gold earned. None of this really matters to us. But final blow is just a nice thing to have as a ninja in general because we're going to be knocking stuff down a lot. So I believe that covers just about everything. Let's jump on in. I'll show you what this is capable of. So we are on Dream of the Strong. This is essentially New Game Plus. We're going to do one of the early missions in the game here to just show you how this plays. Voice in the Twilight. We're essentially going to be fighting a Gozuki, so a boss that you've all seen if you started the game. With both a boss and basic enemies, this should give you a decent style of how this plays. Now, I will say, with an ninjutsu build, it is generally nice to have a blue summon around, just something that's going to get up front and essentially face tank stuff for you. It's not needed by any means. We can kill stuff before it can touch us, and most of the time that is what will happen. But, if you have one, it's not a bad idea. Now, as for general play, you're going to stick with just these. That's why we have those all there. If we need to set something on fire or poison, we have those over here. And then, of course, we have some bombs on to take care of toxic slimes. Power Pill, we're not going to pop until a box. Shinobi boxes, I like to have on in emergencies if I need more tools. And then Keikai is always nice. Some other things, because I know people are going to ask. Menu settings right here. 4 sets, 3 sets, 2 sets, however many you want. So, pop this. Talk to little guy here, and we will pop our Keikai barrier. Barrier talisman, not Keikai. And you'll notice every now and then that I get a lot more damage, and that's a damage bonus from behind. Basically, you get more damage if you're behind an enemy or if they're unaware. See just how much damage we take if we get hit. This is why I said it's high risk, high reward. All right, now for the boss. Now, typically for a boss, I would use both poison and fire at the start. It's not needed by any means, but just to add a little flavor into the situation. Weakness and power pill is all you really need. And the boss is dead. And that's how ninjas play. You know, you go in, you absolutely melt stuff. Like I said, I could have been even more brutal. You know, the hair and feathers were basically an instant burning. One or two poison kunai would have poisoned him, and that just makes prolonged encounters even easier because you have two different sources of recurrent damage going on the boss. But storm kunai behind a boss, especially if you're right up on it, you're going to absolutely decimate them. They're just not going to stand a chance. Like, we didn't even have to use any of our yokai abilities. So just keep in mind, we didn't even show this off at its full potential, and we absolutely melted everything here on New Game Plus. So either way, y'all, that is going to wrap things on up. Thanks for coming. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Get out there, play as a ninja, and I'll see you all in the comment section.